Melchizedek is, without a doubt, a figure that sparks curiosity. Imagine a character who appears almost like a mystery, without background, without lineage, and who emerges at a decisive moment in Abraham's story. In the biblical context, he is described as the king of Salem and at the same time a priest of the Most High God. This combination of titles is rare enough to make us wonder what message this symbol conveys. In a time when kings were warriors and priests were more reclusive figures, Melchizedek manages to unite both roles, making him an enigma that stirs our imagination and leads us to question what was really at stake in that encounter. However, the enigmatic figure of Melchizedek brings us deeper reflections, especially on how he is remembered. Why does he appear in only 3 books of the Bible and yet leave such a significant mark? After all, someone bearing the title King of Peace and also occupying the role of priest seems to carry a greater mission, something almost transcendental. Think about it, a leader of peace and justice who unites 2 fundamental roles in a world where these positions were usually separate. It's no wonder that Melchizedek is regarded as one of the greatest mysteries of antiquity, someone who transcends the norms of the time and shows us that leadership can indeed be multifaceted. And here is where he challenges our view of leadership and spirituality. In today's world, we too are led to seek figures that can represent a complete ideal, balancing leadership with wisdom, authority with compassion. Melchizedek, appearing without a conventional introduction, without a familiar context or known genealogy, seems like a figure sent to make an impact, to leave an example that resonates through the ages. He personifies an ideal that we still seek to understand today, and perhaps, who knows, even to follow. Now, looking ahead, we can't help but think of the impact he had on Abraham, who was only beginning his journey of faith and transformation. After a victory that involved both bravery and risk, Abraham encounters Melchizedek. This moment is loaded with symbolism, and to fully understand it, we need to imagine the impact of this meeting on Abraham's life. Consider that he had no clear reasons to trust or honor Melchizedek, an unknown king who appears to bless him. And yet, Abraham not only accepts the blessing, but recognizes Melchizedek's elevated spiritual position, offering him a tithe of the spoils. This gesture, beyond generosity, reveals the respect Abraham feels for someone who represents divine wisdom. Abraham's act is a declaration of humility. By giving a significant portion of his gains to the priest, he shows that he understands the importance of spiritual leadership. In this case, the tithe was neither a demand nor a rule, but an expression of gratitude. Imagine yourself in Abraham's place, having just faced the uncertainty of battle to save his own kin, his nephew. Instead of exalting his victory, he honors the one who understands the greater purpose behind his mission. This act teaches us that, even in our own achievements, it is wise to recognize those who inspire us or offer guidance at decisive moments. This relationship between Abraham and Melchizedek marks a turning point in Abraham's spiritual journey. He realizes that his victory and the success of his mission are only a part of the path that God has laid out for him. The blessing he receives is almost a sign that he is on the right track, that his purpose goes beyond earthly victories and involves a deeper spiritual connection. And it is with this spirit of humility and gratitude that Abraham moves forward, increasingly committed to his calling. A reflection remains: how often in our own achievements do we pause to recognize something or someone greater, a guide along our path? The figure of Melchizedek goes beyond his time, serving as a reference to the eternal and superior priesthood of Christ. Imagine a priesthood that does not depend on lineage or human rules, but is based on a direct connection with the divine. This is the case with Melchizedek and later with Jesus. Unlike the Levitical priests, who followed a line of succession and were limited by their own mortality, Melchizedek represents a priesthood that transcends, where the sacred is not limited by time or heredity. It is as if he were a glimpse, a shadow of what was to come with the Messiah. When we look at the role of Jesus in this light, we understand that he is not just another priest, but one who rules eternally in a way that earthly laws cannot explain. In Hebrews, this connection is explored, showing that Jesus, like Melchizedek, did not need a lineage to validate his role. This priesthood, however, is not made of empty rituals, but is a bridge between human and divine, something that cannot be broken or replaced. In practice, this reminds us that our faith should not rest on rigid rules, but on an authentic and lasting connection. This aspect of superiority is therefore a call to look beyond the limitations imposed by a religious structure. The life and sacrifice of Jesus, like the enigmatic example of Melchizedek, are invitations to a deeper faith, free from empty formalities. Imagine the impact of a priest who is not confined to a temple, but who is accessible anywhere at any time. This is exactly what Jesus represents. Thus, Melchizedek's typology serves not only to exalt Jesus, but to teach us that true spirituality goes beyond traditions and hierarchies. Speaking of which, Melchizedek still holds more lessons for us on what it means to be a king of peace. Melchizedek appears not only as a spiritual figure, but also as the king of peace and king of justice, titles that carry profound meanings. Salem, the city he governs, directly alludes to peace, a rare and valuable quality. Imagine the responsibility of a leader who must maintain justice and peace in a world where these values are often challenged. He symbolizes the union of two fundamental concepts, showing that the true leader is not only strong and wise, but also just and peaceful. This aspect of his figure makes him a precursor of Christ, who would later be the supreme model of justice and peace for humanity. This connection between Melchizedek and Jesus is a reminder that true power lies in the harmony between authority and compassion. When we associate Jesus with justice and peace, we realize we are not just talking about abstract concepts, but about tangible qualities that he demonstrated in his life and teachings. When we think of a king of peace today, perhaps we can imagine someone who governs with a firm hand and at the same time an open heart. This is the beauty of Melchizedek's leadership and later of Jesus, a government that does not oppress but guides and cares. Considering Melchizedek from this perspective, we see that his figure is an invitation to reflect on our own roles as bearers of peace and justice in our daily lives. Whether at home, at work, or in communities, we have opportunities to apply these ideals. Just as Melchizedek represented a balance between strength and gentleness, we too are called to seek a leadership that inspires respect while bringing tranquility. And interestingly, his story doesn't end there. He is still described as someone without known origin or end, which adds a new level of mystery to his profile. Melchizedek intrigues us with his lack of origin and end, as if he were beyond time itself. The Bible does not record his genealogy, childhood, or any hint of succession, which sets him apart from traditional priests. It is as if he were a living representation of eternity, a figure that exists outside human limitations. By associating him with Jesus, who is also described as eternal, we understand that the priesthood of Christ is not limited by temporal and mutable traditions. It is a direct and unbreakable connection with the divine, unlike anything the Levitical priest could represent. This mysterious characteristic of Melchizedek is no coincidence. It shows us a new understanding of spirituality that does not depend on heritage or lineage. Unlike the Levitical priests, who passed their title from generation to generation, Melchizedek teaches us that true spiritual connection transcends time and formalities. In practice, this suggests that faith is not something we inherit, but something we cultivate, regardless of our origins. Like him, we are called to live a spirituality that is not confined by the limitations imposed by traditions or social structures. This vision of an eternal priesthood opens new paths for our understanding of what it means to be connected to the divine. With Melchizedek as a prefiguration, we understand that Jesus is not just a historical figure, but someone who transcends time and is present in our lives now. This eternity is an invitation to see spirituality as something constant, a presence that does not disappear but evolves with our journey. And with that, we come closer to understanding the importance of the numbers and titles attributed to him, which give us even more insights into his role. Now that you've delved into this reflection on Melchizedek, how about bringing these concepts into your own life? Think, what does it mean for you to be a king of peace and justice in your daily life? What steps could you take to cultivate a spirituality that goes beyond appearances and rules, something truly transformative? Sometimes the answer lies in simple actions, like practicing generosity or seeking justice in small daily actions that reflect what is most genuine in faith. And speaking of that, how can you strengthen this spiritual connection that transcends time? Like Melchizedek, perhaps it's time to explore more deeply what it means to live a life in communion with eternal and universal principles. This pursuit can transform your perspective, helping you become a reference of peace and justice for those around you. If you enjoyed this content and want to continue learning about topics that touch the heart and expand the mind, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. That way you won't miss any updates and can continue on this journey of discovery and growth. After all, we all have a little bit of Melchizedek waiting to be discovered and applied in the world.